I'm Tark in the morning. Cloudy skies again today. We're going to make it up to 63, and that's about it. But it warms up a little bit tomorrow. We'll make it up to 71 with a mix of clouds and sun. 55 right now in the studio. Lampasas City Manager Finley DeGraff and Reed, along with Ronnie Witcher, here to give you a recap of Monday's City Council meeting. Good morning, you two.
Good morning, Ken. We managed to slog in this morning.
You bring your galoshes?
You know what? I worked late last night. Boy, it rained hard, at one point. And anyway, finally my wife called, come home. So after I got the order, I said, okay, and shut everything up, walked outside and looked. Yeah, sure enough, I parked right beside Lake Witcher building.
Lake Witcher.
in the parking lot out there, It was about 3 inches deep where you get in the car. So anyway, we had a good rain. Our pastures will love it, but it did create a few problems. And yes, if you're listening to us on KCYL this morning on the internet rather than KACQ, we'll have it back on the air in a little bit as soon as I slog through the mud and flip a circuit breaker or something. Finley DeGraff and Reed in our studio this morning, and here to talk about that city council meeting.
Good morning. Yeah, the council met Monday night. This will be actually the last meeting for a couple of council members, mayor and council. And so we will seat the new council, new mayor at the next meeting on May 24th. So. Relatively light agenda, although we did take up a few items that may be of interest to the listeners during workshop. I had a report about the status of the COVID cases in Lampasas County. Talked about some subdivision regulations that we may wish to amend at a later time. Talked about livestock again, and we know that that's an issue that may be of interest to some folks, particularly if they have large animals and goats, things like that.
Give us a little detail on that. The COVID thing, I don't hear much. Is it just getting better? Not many people getting it anymore?
The last report I saw, and I believe the report that Chief Smith gave, we're maintaining at fewer than 10 active cases. Yes, I think we, our height was on the order of 170, 180 active cases, so that's positive. I think we still have one hospitalization, but the number of vaccinations continues to go up, and if folks want to get vaccinated, you should have opportunities either by calling the clinic or the hospital, and I believe pharmacies maybe, all of them maybe have the ability to give those shots. So if you just get on the phone, I bet you can find a vaccination.
To you now.
Yes.
It's up to you, folks.
And hopefully
call somebody.
It'll be a little more convenient for somebody to stop by their pharmacy and instead of waiting for an event or driving to a specific location, high school, etc. So hopefully that will make things a little bit easier for folks to become. We also talked about a hike and bike trail plan out at the 580 Sports Park. That is still very conceptual and very early planning stages. We don't know to what extent that'll be implemented, if at all, but the council spent a little time reviewing that.
That seems like a very worthwhile project. Personally, I think you ought to have hiking bike trails all over the place.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that when we went through our comprehensive planning process, and I don't know if it envisioned it specifically at 580 or more along Sulphur Creek, but that was an item that was brought up frequently by the public during surveys and open houses and stakeholder meetings. The need to have that connectivity and have trails and have that amenity to connect different parts of town.
Yes. Yeah, by all means. I want to know if anything was done about the livestock thing. I'm really curious.
Sure, I think the next step, and this is something that I think staff and council want to be pretty methodical about. So after the meeting, the previous meeting, where the idea was issues were introduced, Chief Bailey came back with a kind of a format that we asked council to see if they agreed with, that would basically allow animals based on the size of yard you have, the size of the animal. So there was some sort of a formula in terms of the impact of certain animals on and the proximity of those animals to other households and even your own. So I think the consensus was, yes, this is an appropriate, it's a procedure or an ordinance that everybody can understand in terms of the number of animals you can have, the type of animals you can have, so I think now the next step is to go ahead and craft an ordinance around that format.
And then wait for the changes, because I just have this feeling that that's a kind
Sure.
of a thing that's going to grow. You start out with some kind of an ordinance, and then you find out this won't work, or this is needs adjusting somehow or the other.
And I think the message that we also tried to give City Council was, this is a good opportunity to get the public involved and make sure that they're engaged in this. We don't want to pass this type of ordinance in particular without giving the public the opportunity, either through public hearing or written comment, to let us know what they're thinking. Because you're right, the devil is in the details, and if you don't work them all out ahead of time, then you're going to be coming back from time to time to amend. Better get it right the first time and hear from the public about what their thoughts are.
Sure. Yeah, you can just imagine the possibilities. On the one side, we do need an ordinance of some sort, because we don't want to create a feral hog thing
Right.
right in the edge of town, or I think one of the big problems they've had in some cities is chickens. I mean, you start out with a couple of pet chickens in the backyard to lay eggs for you, and
Sure.
that seems okay. And next thing you know, people are letting roosters loose,
Right.
and you got herds of them running around cities.
Right. Yeah, and I think I mean, shoot, you can go to Fort Worth, Texas, and they're bandy roosters running all over in some of these neighborhoods. But
Yeah.
that would be one of the conditions of having chickens. You wouldn't have any roosters.
Right.
So
Yeah, so there's a lot to work on
absolutely.
that one. A lot of other stuff makes more sense. Were there any movements, any actions, solid actions taken at the meeting that were changes in our way of life or anything?
Not terribly. We did take up, and council did working with Vision on a mural for the Calvert Municipal Building, and so that's something that they'll continue to work on, and that's not maybe terribly exciting to the public, but also will be in auditor for the coming year again. So some kind of nuts and bolts business, nothing major, fairly light agenda on the action items, and once we get the new council seated, I'm sure that'll ramp up quite a bit.
Is the auditor changing?
No, we're using
It's
the same
not.
auditor, Singleton Clark.
What you must have been, in your experiences as city manager around the country, you must have been in cities where they were required, maybe by some kind of action, or it was generally accepted anyway, that the auditing be changed every year, every couple of years or something like that. Some thought that auditors might become too familiar with staff or something.
Sure.
Have we changed auditors?
Not
X number of
not
years?
since I have been here. So it's still basically Singleton Clark has been doing the audits for the last 7-8 years.
Okay, so what is the feeling? Is the feeling that you need an auditor that is familiar with the business?
Yeah, I
of
think
the
that
city,
philosophy
or-
kind of wanes from council to council, town to town. I've been, I've worked in other communities where they have changed the auditor from time to time. I think it's important to have some familiarity with the operation. At the same time, when they do their testing for different areas, Singleton comes in and different area each year, so they don't just look at contracts one year or this particular sample of transactions one year. They take a look over different departments. So we feel like that they are taking a big picture look, and the fact that they come in year out, they know to rotate those different tests and different audits at the various departments.
Are there auditing firms that are not just for a financial audit, which is what we accept, but aren't there firms that come in and look at efficiencies like work crews, things like that, to give you some idea of how efficient you are and that sort of thing? Has that ever been done in the city of Lampasas?
Not that I'm aware of, but yes, I mean, there's and not just auditing firms. There are financial firms that can come in and do that, and other folks, HR firms that can come in and look at productivity and workloads and things like that. You bet. It has not been done since I've been here.
In a small town like Lampasas, that's city manager's job to figure out those things and run the place.
And I'm not saying that would not be helpful, but you're right. I mean, we know our employees. We know what they're doing. Yeah. It's not like we have 500 or 600 employees, and we're so removed from the work itself that we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I understand. Well, speaking of with this heavy rain that we had yesterday, did we have to stop traffic like out at the park or over on Hackberry Street, the usual places where the
I don't
street
believe
floods?
that we had any or low water crossing closures. If they did, they happened probably last night when you and I are hopefully asleep. But I'm not aware of any road closures. We obviously are going to have to fill up our mowers and get them ready to go. But we do that every spring. This is something we're used to.
Yeah. What about this summer? What are we thinking about? I know didn't have Spring Ho and other festivals last year here in Lampasas, and everybody's geared up to go with festivals.
Right. And I think I wouldn't say 100% back to normal, but our staffing concerns at the pools have been changed, and we've been able to fill all those positions, so we'll have a normal pool season. I think the festivals are gearing up to operate it close to normal as they can. So I think a good barometer for that is they had somewhat of a regular Little League season this year, so that's a great start to the summer, and we think things are going to be close to normal. Hopefully, as more and more people get vaccinated and the incident of the spread goes down, people feel more comfortable about participating and going out and attending these festivals, and et cetera.
So you mentioned Little League. We have Little League baseball, and I guess they call it Little League softball. I don't know. Anyway, I know we have baseball and softball for the kids, and all of that takes place over in the Turner Park area, maybe some of it out at the 580 Sports Park. Are other organizations or anything coming in this year to the sports park to play ball, like softball leagues from out of town?
Yeah, in fact, we've had not as many softball tournaments as previous years, but we've kind of had ongoing softball tournaments out at the sports park. Being an outdoor venue, and provided they abide by certain conditions, that they've been able to have those tournaments. But I would anticipate that those will be more frequent than they have been in the last year.
People are getting used to the 580 Sports Park now after all these years.
Sure.
And it's you got a a little rodeo arena out there,
Right.
and that kind of thing. And I noticed more entrances and thoroughfares through
Mhm.
the park. So it's beginning to come into its own now. isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, and I think the idea that is completely implemented or not of some additional trail work out there, I think
Mhm.
it's a great use for the remainder of that park. You know, you're not going to be able to put any more fields down in some of that creek bottom and the different terrain that we have to the south of the field. So I think that's a great use and will really kind of complete that park.
Is I know, I guess it's been 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know. I was out at the sports park and walked over to the south end, and it seemed like a lot of brush and stuff like that
Sure.
over there. But you looked at it, I couldn't help but think this has a lot of possibilities if
You
it
bet.
was all cleaned up
You bet.
over there. So I guess some work going on in that area.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've gotten some volunteers and some people that have used that area of the park that have actually gone in and done some work, you know, taking weed eaters out there and
That's good.
cleared some different areas that for use for bikes and walking. So it's a great grassroots effort that's, you know, kind of brought.
Do we have any changes like that, any expansions going on in the Brook Park area or Hancock Park area?
Not at this time. We continue to take a look at improvements to the hostess house, and council will hear a report on that at the next meeting. But I think you know they've committed several months ago about taking a hostess house, trying to get it up to code where it isn't. Maybe some improvement elevator and accessibility. So that's an item at Hancock Park they're looking at. Campbell Park, we're still working construction of a pavilion and a skate park over there. So not only are we taking a look at brand new stuff, but also improvements to what we currently have.
Okay. Glad you came in this morning.
You bet. I do have something to pass on. Mandy Walcher, our Economic Development Director, asked me to just spread the news that we will have the job fair Thursday, June 10th at L Check from 10 to 2. So if you are an employer that needs help or if you are looking for a job, get a hold of Mandy or attend on June 10th.
Okay. All right. Lampasas City Manager Finley DeGraffin Reed. On Wednesdays, you're listening to KCYL KACQ Radio.
Here's Dave Ramsey with today's Ramsey Reality.